Awesome. So I want to thank everybody for joining today. This is my third time going through some unscripted discovery in using the code interpreter and OpenAI. It's a really cool piece of technology. So we're going to do some more today. And I had just a couple ideas in my head, and I figured let me do it live. So if you want to get interactive, you can type in the chat, raise your hand. You can ask questions. I have no idea where this is going to go. It may completely fail. It may be really cool, which I suspect. And it may completely go off the rails. So your interaction, your questions would be great. If not, I'm just going to jump in. But before we do that, I wanted to do a couple of announcements, and I'll drop some of these in the chat. So next week, August 17th, I'm going to be doing my second. I'll be back again on the Visual Studio Code live stream with Microsoft. And I'm going to be talking about how you can unlock GPT-4 insights with your data. And without passing your data into the cloud, I'm going to show some techniques of how you can leverage GPT to answer questions about your information. And I'll be doing it all with PowerShell, and it's not, you don't have to just use PowerShell to get this done. But if you want to join, click on that link, click the notification, and next week you can join myself. Burke Holland's going to host me. He's out of the VS Code team. He's really a lot of fun to do live demonstrations with, and we're going to pair program, he and I, and then we're going to build out this solution. So it'll be fun for all. Next up, if you're on my meetup, which you probably are because you got here through that, next in 2 weeks on August 24th, Bruce Payette, one of the founding members of the PowerShell team, he'll be on, and he's going to go through his new post PowerShell shell called Braid, and walk us through how he built it, what he built, how to use some of it. He did this at one of the conferences recently, and this will be a little different, a little more cozier community on a meetup, and really interesting technology. You can still use PowerShell from Braid. It's all built on top of PowerShell. It's different than what we know, but I always like looking at stuff. A, I like to be an early adopter, and B, I always get ideas about, well, how can we use parts of that in my work today and get me thinking about different stuff. If you want, I recommend heading over to my YouTube channel, and I'll drop in some links for that. You can subscribe, get notifications. I'll be posting this session to my YouTube channel. I have the other ones posted up there. I have videos posted from the meetups, and I do other walkthroughs on technology I post there as well. It's a good resource for if you like this kind of information. It's something good for you to check out. Last but not least, I released a PowerShell AI.functions module, I guess a week or so ago. I'll drop a link in, and this adds to the PowerShell AI module I already have out there that interacts with GPT, lets you get ChatGPT in the console. You can use that from your scripts. And with functions, it's a new thing called function calling with OpenAI, where you can actually pass up signatures of your functions to GPT, not passing any of your data. And you can then use prompts to ask questions, and it will figure out what function calls that you've passed up, which ones for you to call to solve your problem. So you can begin to build autonomous agents with this. So I've got some pieces set up. I've got interactive notebooks on my GitHub repo, and we'll drop one of these in, something to check out. So definitely head over to the GitHub repo. I also have my PowerShell AI module up there. They're all up in the PowerShell gallery. So if you do an install module, PowerShell AI, you're good to go. Questions. Let's see. Do I work in Python? I don't professionally work in Python, but I've worked with Python since it first came out 100 years ago. And I see a lot of similarities, of course, between Python and PowerShell. Going to be one of the questions I ask Bruce Payette in the coming weeks. I know he took a lot of inspiration from lots of languages. It's not necessary to know Python to do a lot of this stuff with AI, especially with the code interpreter. It's good to have a bit of a background. So, if you do want to dive deeper, it's always good to have some of those capabilities in your toolbox. 6:30 p.m. Eastern is too early for me. Good to know. That's right. You're in Europe. You're in France. Well, I will be posting the video to that. And as I bring on different speakers, I typically ask what's a good time for them. I'll be hosting on from, I think she's in the Netherlands, or I'm not sure. She'll be on in November, and she's based in Europe. So I'll probably be doing like a 10 a.m. like this with her as we go through one of my favorite topics, PowerShell and Excel. She's done some really cool stuff with it. And you can check out the meetup page to see where that is if that's something that interests you. All right, so that's enough of that. Let me just grab one piece of information and then we can get going. Here's a bunch of links if you want to catch up with me. I'm on X, formerly known as Twitter. I mostly post there. I do post on LinkedIn. You can find me there if you want. There's my GitHub repo for PowerShell AI. I have a bunch of other repos up there. I have my PowerShell Excel module up there and many, many more if you want to take a look. There's my YouTube channel. You can subscribe to that. And there's my blog where I post things as well. Let's get moving. So for those folks who don't know me, my name's Doug Finke. I'm a 15-time Microsoft MVP. I focus mostly on PowerShell and writing code that glues many things together. And one of the things I've done is glued GPT into PowerShell. And that opens up, I think, a world of opportunity. I'm not the only Lang person that has done, there are other people who have done other languages. They've actually plumbed GPT into things like the PHP, C#, of course, Python was built in, and many, many other languages. So it's definitely great to be able to have this stuff at your fingertips in a language that you're comfortable with, so you can begin to explore and figure out how can AI help you do development. So today we're going to take a look at GPT-4's code interpreter. And for those who don't know, you have to pay a $20 it's $20 a month to be on ChatGPT Plus. It's easily cancelable. You can cancel after 1 month. One of the things that's cool is you get to see early releases of all the software. So ChatGPT's code interpreter came out 2 or 3 months ago, and they only initially opened it up as a release for researchers. And then within 2 months, they made it available to all ChatGPT Plus folks. So if you're interested in working with these types of tools, it's definitely a worthwhile investment for $20 a month. And you don't have to stay on for the whole year or longer. You can stay on for a month or two, easily cancel, and you're good to go. So in order to work with it, once you pay the $20, you have to opt in. So you can click on your name on the bottom, click settings, go into the beta features. And here you can see I have plugins and code interpreter. I enabled the code interpreter. And then you can either use GPT-3.5, which is the older version, even though it's only 6 months old. It's the fastest model, but it's not as accurate and doesn't have as many features. Or you can come over to the GPT-4 stuff, and you can either use it in a default mode, the code interpreter mode, or you can actually enable plugins into your prompting session. So here I'm just going to enable the code interpreter. And what that does is down here, you can tell a little bit of difference, because if I go back to, let's see if I go to the default, you see in the bottom here it says send a message. That's how you create your prompts. If I click on code interpreter, watch the bottom left, it gives you a plus sign. And what that does is you can then start choosing from your file system. You can upload all different types of documents. You can upload sound files, you can upload pictures, you can upload CSV files, Excel files, zip files that contain Excel files. I showed a little bit of that last time. And today I figured, let's play with, I'm going to play with, initially, we're going to do regexes. I think regexes are interesting and useful, and I'm also love to poke fun at it because some people actually just use it way too much. But one of the things that this is really good at, and even better with the interpreter, is I'm going to paste this in here and say, I want you to create a test and test a regular expression that can identify numbers like, and I give it a range of phone number types. So I'm giving it examples. This is kind of, it's almost like a few shot prompt where I'm giving it examples, but I'm not really giving examples of how to solve the problem. I'm just saying, okay, based on these numbers, I want you to figure out how to do a regular expression. Now, this worked in GPT-3.5, and it could work, but it could actually, some of the challenges is that it could hallucinate solutions. Now with the code interpreter, what's really cool is it will attempt building a solution, and depending on the complexity of the solution, so I just pressed enter, depending on the complexity, it will actually try and build it in code, and then so-called it can test it. And so straight off the bat, so GPT-4, and some people think that this is GPT 4.5 on the way to GPT-5 coming up. It starts to tell me what it is, says, okay, I understand that, shows the pattern it's going to use, and gives me an explanation, right? So even if I was working with a pair programmer that was really good at doing this stuff, it'd take a while to come up with that pattern, and maybe it's too complex, maybe it's not complex enough, only gets part of the stuff done. But how, being able to spell out all these different things, you don't really have that in regular conversation, I find. And now what's cool is it actually then builds that into a Python program, and it sets up a pattern, and gives the examples, and it actually checks to see if it has matches, right? And here's the results, and it says, okay, that expression successfully matched, and you can use this pattern in your code to identify similar phone numbers. So that's one of the next steps. If you do this in GPT-3.5 or even in 4, you're not going to get as a full explanation and set of code this way. It'll be less verbose. You have to do some more round trips in the conversation. So this is really cool, really interesting. So Mike, I know you sent me a direct message about stuff. I thought it was an interesting comment. I'd like to just address it publicly. It's good stuff. You're asking about Python is by far the language I had the most elemental experience with before GPT. Focus on it. Yep, absolutely. Pick the language that's you're most comfortable with. I believe in a very short period of time, it's not going to matter what language you really work in until you step outside of the AI space and you want to interact with your APIs, databases, your microservices, your legacy applications. So I think we're quickly approaching, and it's just my speculation, that we're going to have, the language choice is going to be interesting, and GPT is going to be able to do a lot of neat things. So yeah, if you're comfortable with Python, use that. If you're comfortable with C#, they've got a .NET library that interacts with GPT. So along the lines of, we all picked the way OpenAI was built. They built a Python interface, they built a bunch of APIs, and the idea is to follow that API in the language of your choice and build the SDKs like I did with PowerShell AI. That way, when you look at examples, you can actually go, oh, okay, that's in Python, but I can squint and I can see, and I'll do that in PowerShell this way, or I'll do it in C# this way. But you can make the same function calls and the REST API calls, and you're off to the races. Now, back to the example. So we have a running regex. We've got, this is actually actual code. It's sandboxed. This, I believe that the code interpreter is running on Kubernetes in Docker containers. So they're sandboxed. You can install stuff. You can copy files up. But you can't really, I'm sure there are people out there trying to tap in and break the sandbox and all, do what they want to do. So this is actually running real live code and checking results, which is quite interesting and amazing. Now, What I want to also show is I'm going to copy this code, and I'm going to bring up. Now I also have GitHub Copilot X installed. That's the latest, greatest from Microsoft's GitHub. It's a next step from just Copilot. And I just created a file. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the language to PowerShell, right? And I'll make a block comment, and I'm going to paste in that Python code. And I'm going to select it. And then I'm going to hit. You now have a way with Copilot X to have an inline Copilot you can interact with, right? So I hit Control-I. There's a way to get to it without using a shortcut key. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I'm going to ask it, please. I like being polite to GPT. It gets it in a good mood. So please translate from Python to PowerShell. Okay, so what I'm doing is I worked this all out in the code interpreter, which only does Python, and then I brought it over to GitHub or to Visual Studio Code with the GitHub Copilot X extension installed. And what's cool is it now shows me the original code, and then it shows me a diff, and it shows me what I would get in PowerShell. And I have an option here to either discard it or accept it. And let me accept that code. And we'll talk about that in a second. So question, you need Copilot license to do that, or ChatGPT only? This is, so this, you need to have a GitHub. I forget how the licensing works, but you have to get, to get Copilot X, I still believe it's on a wait list, but it's very broad. It's easier to get on now. So you need that, and then you need the license, and you need to pay for the GitHub Copilot. So yes, so GitHub Copilot is a separate product from Microsoft you pay for. The PowerShell AI module that I have and those types of SDKs in the world uses the OpenAI REST API, and you need a license key to work with that. And then you can actually pay for ChatGPT Plus, which is another fee. So, and that's just for the interaction in the web and getting access to plugins and all the new and latest stuff. So yeah, there's a bunch of different ways to interact with it, and we're not gonna, and we'll just throw in Azure OpenAI. That's another thing where you set up your own instance, which uses all the same models as OpenAI. You can throw that up on Azure, and then you can interact with that, and that's GPT as you'd expect. And my PowerShell AI module also works with that as well. So they're all using OpenAI's GPT models, and they're all a little bit different. But in addition, what you just saw here is it's not just working with OpenAI GPT, it's also got some special sauce in terms of how they do moderation, they do different kinds of things in terms of how they wrap your prompt in another prompt, and they have also done additional training on the models in the GPT Copilot X piece. So, and also there's also Bing Chat, right? And that's another interface into ChatGPT using the Bing search engine. And so they're all different little flavors. There is no one way to do it at this point, and the industry is moving unbelievably quick. We're only in the middle of August, and GPT-4's is probably right around the corner. And yes, but you got to pay for a bunch of these things to make it work. So back to this now. So I took the Python code and I asked Copilot X to convert it to PowerShell. I'm not sure I need that. I'm not going to pay attention to that. And let's see if I run this. So I just asked a bunch of questions to Code Interpreter, and then it copied it from the web page and Code Interpreter on the web page, pasted it in, and I knew the code would work as Python because it already tested it. And I asked it to convert to PowerShell, and in fact, it works the same. So the speculation is that this will become part of GitHub Copilot X. Don't know any dates, can't confirm, but that's the speculation. I have not been able to peek behind the curtain on this, but I can see the differences between the models across the different products that we just talked about and start seeing like, oh, wow. It's going to have reduced hallucinations because it's actually going to be able to test the code. Now, in my mind, while this is all based on Python, I really can't see that being limited to Python. And I'm sure that they're having a bunch of people in OpenAI working on different languages like C# and Julia and R and C++. Probably not PowerShell, but we shall see. I'm sure they're not going to train it specifically. They're going to have a general pattern and a general SDK on their side to be able to pull in any different languages, all different languages they want. So yeah, definitely want to get involved with this stuff. Okay, so that's cool, I think. And you can get very complicated. We gave it a basic phone number of different types, right? And it came up with one that can handle all those. If you want to come up with more examples, sure you can. And if you want to start working with your own data that you need, right? Give it a bunch of examples, throw it in here, and see what it comes up with. I suspect it's going to be really cool. Now, what's nice too is if it failed any of these tests, it would apologize, and it would go back and would try to correct the code so that it could, and would rerun it till all the tests pass. Obviously, if you have some really complicated stuff, it's not going to get it right. But this thing you have the opportunity, like in these types of things, get 100% accurate first shots, or it'll go through a couple of conversations with itself and get you at least 80, 90, 100% there. So worth noting. Next up, I'm going to make a new chat. What I want to do is, let's see if I can. I want to do some stuff with OCR. Everybody here familiar with OCR? Type of one if you're familiar with OCR. Okay, we got one person that knows OCR. So optical, hey, Merlin from Belgium. How are you doing? Thanks for joining. Thank you, Wes. I'll be more specific with numerics and text later. So OCR is optical character recognition. So I don't know if you ever play with that kind of stuff, but you can actually give something a picture that has text on it. And you can, there are programs in Python. I think I've even done that with PowerShell. I'm not even sure if Azure has a piece that you can actually do that, where you can actually pass it a picture, and then you can have it read the text on the image and then just return the text. I am building with ChatGPT and OCR right now. Perfect. Excellent, Mike. Well, now we'll see how we can do it in Code Interpreter. So let's double click this and see if we get, okay. So let me go back and do that one more time. Because what I want to do is take a look at the picture locally. So now this is gonna, this is gonna be awesome because the school season here in the United States, starts in a few weeks, if not already. And this is going to be really fun for students and teachers alike across the United States, and I'm sure across the world. So now here's a problem you might have in a textbook. So you can take a picture of it with your phone and says, solve the inequality that represents each story, then interpret what the solutions mean. And, for every $9, blah, blah, blah. Now, I'm not a mathematician. This would take me some time to figure out, work some things through. But you can call me lazy or you can call me creative. I'm going to upload that image, which I just did. Azure has an OCR workload, exactly. So OCR has been around, and Python has thousands of libraries that work with it. So I just uploaded that image to ChatGPT, and I could be a student, don't know anything about prompting or whatever, and now I can do something like say, like, now what? And that's what's really cool, I think, about GPT, Code Interpreter, is that you can look at it as a really smart intern. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can ask it questions, then it will say things back to you, and then from there, you can have a nice, interesting conversation. Looks like you uploaded a file. How can I assist you? Yeah. So didn't go as far as I wanted. OCR it, please. See what it does. So that might, let's use optical character recognition. So off it goes, and then you can drop this down and take a look at what it's doing. And it pulls in PyTest and the image library package and grabs the file that it uploaded, and we're good to go. And take a look at that. So it just OCR'd it and fed it back to me to solve that, right? That's exactly what was in the image, right? Is there anything, and now I'm going to ask it to please solve. And what's really cool is notice the text here and the greater than equal sign. It's actually converting the text into LaTeX. So it's taking mathematical symbols and then putting it into LaTeX, which is a common way to work with math when you're writing it in documents and so on and so forth. And there we go. So this means that Elena gives $3 or less to charity for every $9 she earns, ensuring she keeps. So the question was like, how much can she give away and still keep $42 from the paycheck, so to speak? And so I uploaded an image. I asked it to OCR it. I've done this I did this a couple of times with other things, and it typically, sometimes Code Interpreter will just jump in right away after I say now what, and start to do things like solving the problem that right off the bat. So we nudged it in a couple directions using the conversational turnarounds, and looked at the problem, gives the solution here, and then gives the explanation. And I can then copy and paste this with the clipboard, copy it to the clipboard, put it in my homework, and I'm off to the races. So yeah, students and teachers are going to have fun, but this is really awesome, in my opinion, even for me when I'm looking at certain types of stuff. So Mike says, from my experience, GPT-4 will suggest open CV and easier as libs for yep. That's the interesting thing about the probability aspects about GPT, right? So yeah, so the libraries it chose to use here, I don't know if you're using, I guess you're using GPT-4 or GPT-3.5, Mike. So yeah, the probability aspects it will choose different libraries depending on the model you're using, depending on its level of training. There's no one way to skin the cat, right? So you'll see those differences. And the cool part is, I think, is I can again copy this code. I can take this as a running Python script, copy it to my local machine, and I can run it. And if I don't want to use these particular libraries, I can tweak them and then use the appropriate method calls and function calls on those objects. Check to see if you can extract the text. Guessing it is unable because of the file formatting. Interesting question. Mike, can you say a little bit more about see if it can extract the text? I would have assumed that this was the extraction of the text, but maybe not. Or you mean like extract it and save it in a file? Well, we can get back to that. So while this may not be something you do on a day-to-day basis, I'm also looking to, when I present these unscripted pieces, couldn't get off mute, just kind of planting seeds, give you ideas of what you can do with this. All right, Mike, I'm going to ask you to unmute. See if Zoom's going to cooperate. All right.
It does. I've had issues sometimes where I've updated, where I've uploaded either an image or a PDF to do text extraction, and Code Interpreter was not able to extract and to analyze the text because of a file format.
Absolutely.
I was just gonna.
Cool. Yep. Now I see what you're talking about. Yeah, it's Code Interpreter is not perfect. When was the last time you tried that and you got the issue? Was that like yesterday or like 2-3 weeks ago, or? Oh, just curious. Did I put you back on mute? Sorry.
Yeah, there we go. I would say July 29th plus or minus 2 days, I'd say.
Okay, so like about a week or so, maybe 2 weeks ago. Well, you're using an old version, Mike. You got to catch up. This stuff is AI internet time. Yeah.
Real time, amazing.
So like here I have this version I have is August 3rd, right? So it's 8 days old. You see on the bottom here. Yeah, it's crazy. Do I keep putting you on mute, or is this? So anyway,
no.
Yeah. Sorry about that. but I don't know if you still want to say something, but yeah, this is, it could be new, it could be updated. They're constantly updating this thing, at least here. And what's really going to be cool is I believe this is going to move to a REST API call. My fingers are crossed, because then this really opens the door for some crazy stuff. But yes, it's not going to always be 100%. As a separate note, which I'm not going to show, I've actually sat in my own handwriting and I used print. I printed out saying, here, the top line was PowerShell AI web page. And then the next line I wrote in pen with a left bracket said, link to Google, close bracket. And then on another line, I said, open bracket, link to my GitHub repo, close bracket. I took a picture of that and I uploaded it. And it tried many different ways to segment the picture, this, that, the other thing. It was not able to read my handwriting, but I've seen demos where it has. And then I typed it into PowerPoint, and I took a snapshot of that, uploaded it, and then it worked. And I asked it to create an HTML page, and it created it correctly, copied, paste, and it was a live working page. Simple example, but this is where we're heading. So, and again, August 3rd. So yeah.
It's amazing.
Oh, dude, this stuff blows my mind. I say this every time when I'm on here. When I play with this every day, all these different tools, and every day you can. I just sit here and laugh because it's mind blowing to me what it can do. So cool. What else we got? I didn't know about the Control-I shortcut. I have a feeling I'll be using that a lot. Sweet. Equivalent on the Mac, Command-I, you got it. It works on the Mac. That's all. Now that Command-I and the Control-I for the Windows Mac, that piece is if you have Copilot X. So if you're paid for it, you have access to it, and you've been on the wait list, and you're all good. Excellent. So Jason has access to all that. You have all those goodies. And I think I don't mean to digress too much, but hey, it's fun times with, there's also Control-Alt-I, and that gives you the GitHub Copilot X chat window, which gives you more ranges of freedom to talk about your code, ask questions, and this whole pane here is an amazing piece of technology that they've worked out. Very impressive. Okay, yeah, this stuff is cool. Don't lollygag. Don't get yourself involved with this as best you can. Don't worry about spending the $20. Pay for the REST API stuff. I work with my AI module every day. I test it. I try add new pieces. I try out new ideas, and so every day I'm banging on this thing and sending up requests and data, test data about concepts. And I think my bill last month was $7. So between Copilot or between ChatGPT Plus, my REST API stuff, I do stuff and try things. I think my bill was $27 last month total. I don't pay for Copilot X just to be above board. I get that because I'm a Microsoft MVP. And I also feed back to the teams inside of Microsoft. And but they are, like I said before, I haven't got the peek behind all the curtains yet. I'm hoping to do so. But there are some really cool things coming, and I'm under NDA about that. So let's move on to the last piece, and then we can wrap this up. Thanks for the interaction, Mike. Really appreciate it. Jason, awesome. I'm gonna do another new chat. And now what I'm gonna do, and before I do that, if you're not familiar with it, there's something called Kaggle. I'm not sure if that's how people pronounce it differently. So, but what this is they use this in the Kaggle Grandmaster Champion stuff. Where people who are really good at things like XGBoost and gradient descent and linear concepts and data science, super genius people that I don't know what they do or how they do this stuff, excuse me. But on here, you can look for any kind of data sets. And what's really neat is you can take these data sets, they come in CSV or they come in zips. And these are some things that I use. I download these ideas and then I pull them into the ChatGPT. And I ask it to do stuff with it. So what I looked for was, I wanted to look for, ask ChatGPT, how do you pronounce Kaggle? Oh, Alexander, how do you pronounce Kaggle? I got it right. Kaggle rhymes with bag. Kaggle. Oh, that's right. I've heard that announced. I've heard it pronounced that way. Kaggle. So I pronounced it wrong. It's Kaggle. Or is it Kag bag? Yeah, Kaggle. Thank you, Alexander. And thank you, Code Interpreter. And this is the cool part about this whole thing is like you might sit there and ask a question. Like I see a lot of people, they might ask me a question and I'll just type it into GPT. And that's great that Alexander did that. It's like, yeah, well, let's ask AI. I see people who type in different social media. They go, hey, I'm trying to do blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. I copy paste what they say and I drop it right in here and I come back with an answer. Yeah, we have to like get beyond. We need to start changing the way we think about this thing. Like it's a programming environment, which it is, but it's more than that, and that we can have the freedom to go, oh, let me just ask AI about stuff. That's great to hear. REST API for $7 with calls you up. Have you worked with Azure AI Service, OpenAI API? I checked last night and was still waitlisted. Yes, I have an OpenAI instance up and running. Again, I'm an MVP, so I don't pay for it. I don't know how much that costs. And again, my PowerShell AI module, I've enabled it so you can actually call all the endpoints in your private Azure piece. It's really cool. And since Alexander's on, he's great because he kicks tires, and Alexander always finds problems with my stuff, even my writing. He's not from the United States. English is his second language, but he writes better than I do. It's awesome. So yeah, all these services are amazing. And, just as another concept, there's Anthropic and there's Claude and there's Poe and there's Llama 2. So all these language models are coming out and they all have interfaces to them and they're all a little bit different. But one of the things that I think about, and one of the things that is the community, and then I'm not the community at large, but like the fringe experimenters with this stuff, the people who are really going deep dives on this, it's not going to be about these LLMs, right? So whether you're using GPT-4 or Llama, it's not really going to matter. It's going to be the user experience around it. That's why GitHub Copilot X is amazing to me. It's like kind of like the Rosetta Stone that people are going to chase. And I'm hoping that the competition beats them. But those use it, you don't care that you're using which LLM. And I'm sure I think they've even enabled Llama. Yeah, they've enabled Llama in the Azure OpenAI stuff. It doesn't matter what the language model is. It's the user experience around it. So it's the monitoring, it's the moderation, it's the prompting, it's how easily can you prompt, and all the other special sauce that they put on it that makes the difference. One more, all from VSC. Excellent point, Mike. Yep. All from Visual Studio Code. I was on the Visual Studio Code announcement party yesterday. They have it every month that they release the new Visual Studio Code, and Olivia actually gets on there and brings on the engineers from Visual Studio Code. What they're doing with the diff engines and Jupyter notebooks and Polyglot notebooks, and that all this stuff, it's a one-stop shop. And those folks on here, I don't know how many. Type of one if you know what, have heard of or used Emacs. I was not an Emacs user back in the day. I'm not a VI user. Excellent, Jason. So I'm not a fan of VI. I never know how to get out of it. I don't know how to quit it. So Emacs used to be back in the day, you could either use it as an editor or it became your full operating system. Visual Studio Code is getting to the point where you can tap into anything. They've updated the Visual Studio Code PR issue interface inside of VS Code. You can do amazing things that you could only used to do on the web, but now you can do inside of Visual Studio Code. You don't need to leave your editor to get stuff done. AI is how LLMs augment your skill set and experience. Absolutely. If I do a presentation, an hour presentation every few weeks about this in general, and I show other examples that go beyond this. And AI is not going to replace you, folks, but someone who knows AI, they're going to replace you. You need to update your skill set. Alexander, governance will play a big role. As I agree, as in anything, it's, you got to keep this thing on the rails, but I'm going to leave that to other people to solve. I'm interested in what Sam Altman, who's one of the key founders of OpenAI, they're using AI to build governance for AI. Is that a good thing, a bad thing? I have no idea. And with X.AI out, Elon Musk's new company and some of the talent that he's brought over to there, I have no idea where this is going to go. Yeah, all this being safe and capable and whatnot, but don't wait for that to get involved. You need to learn how to do prompt engineering. Prompt engineering may go away. Don't know. I use my iPad with this, and I don't type on I don't like typing on my iPad. But what's really cool is that the recording, I think the recording, I'm not sure if it's from my iPad or if it's using the Whisper technology that OpenAI came out with. I can actually sit there, hit the record button, say what I want, captures what I need, cleans out the noise. It's really accurate. And, I would ask, how do you pronounce Kegel? And it would actually do that. Up it goes, comes back. And we're going to have round trip conversations with this stuff in the very near term. So you'll be talking to this. And I think they just saw yesterday, GitHub Copilot. They've had this, they talked about it for a while, where you can actually talk to Visual Studio Code through GitHub Copilot to generate code. So you won't be typing anymore. You'll just be talking to your computer saying, hey, build this. Oh, that's not correct. Undo this, redo that. So we'll see. Read about Microsoft AI Red Team in Wired. Super interesting article. Awesome. Do you have a link for that? That'd be awesome. Don't mean to make you go look for it though. Have you seen interest in your talks from either non-technical or 65 plus audiences? What do you mean by 65 plus audiences? You mean the older folks, the graybeards like myself? But I'm not 65 plus yet. Yeah, I've seen a lot of interest in my talk from non-technical space. And when I do talk about it, I try not to, be super deep in the technology aspects. But saying, hey, this is how, and in fact, my daughter, she's married, and my son-in-law, they found AI on their own. They found GPT, and he was kind of puffing out his chest. He goes, hey, have you ever heard of this GPT stuff? I'm like, yeah, I do presentations on it, and we started chatting about it, and they're using it in their business. So talking to him, he's he's more technical than most, but thank you, Alexander, awesome. And they use it to a great extent. They're even starting to do operations research with GPT where they can put stuff into it and say, hey, some of our stuff's not being utilized. Figure out what's not utilized, when it's not utilized, and come up with a campaign, how to reduce costs so we can get it moving. So yeah, this is just an exciting possibilities. And it really, for me, it just kind of like plants seeds in my head of like, well, where can you really apply this thing? So that was a bit much. So there's the Wired article. I know you are not 65. I was curious if you have seen people cross the barrier of understanding versus fear. Oh, dude, I see 20-year-olds afraid of this. I see 30-year-olds afraid of this. If you go into social media stuff, you bring some. I was talking about this stuff because I've been playing with GitHub Copilot, the original version, for like 2 years. And I was mentioning this stuff in some channels, and people would be like, this thing will never do this. I wouldn't want to trust it. I wouldn't use it in my code. So yeah, there's a lot of trepidation. There's a lot of resistance to it. And I don't see it being limited to any age category. So yeah, but it's a conversation you have, and then you needed to, like I'm in the PowerShell space, and PowerShell came out 15 plus years ago, and there was lots of resistance to that. There's always resistance to new technology. I'll show part of my age. I was around when PCs were invented, and I was a mainframe person. I used to program assembler. And when the first PCs came out, I was a young pup at the time. And the older guys, when they saw the PCs, I was like, yeah, give it to the young guy, give it to Doug to work with. And I was like, and I sat there and like, oh my God, this thing's amazing. And they would all stand around. They were much older than I was. They go, it's a toy. It can't do what a mainframe does. It can't do this. It can't do that. I'm like, you can build some really amazing things with this. And then spreadsheets came out, and other things came out, and database stuff came out on these little PCs with 5 1/4 inch floppies. But anyway, always resistance. ChatGPT is exactly what I would have thought AI would be before I started. If you had asked me in 2012, augmentation on demand. Sweet. Yeah, I've been around the AI winter for too many decades. I don't think I had the vision of that. And NLP was always something that was like, yeah, that's cute, maybe one day. And it's here today. So let's cruise into the last piece. Hope that was fun stuff to talk about. I know I could talk about this all day. So let's talk about dirty data, done dirt cheap. So I pulled down this from I can't put Kaggle bag. I don't know. I'm going to call it Kaggle from that place, that website. And I pulled this, I looked up dirty data and I had a bunch of examples because it's, when you're a data scientist, you spend 80% of your time scrubbing and cleaning data and figuring things out about it before you actually get to figuring out patterns in your information. So with my really smart intern who knows how to program in Python now, let's see what it can do. So I'm going to upload the zip file straight away. I think I don't really remember what was in it, but that's not a problem. I have code interpreter here to help. And again, I'm going to say, oh, you know what? I'm going to do that differently. I'm going to do a new chat, make sure I'm on the code interpreter. We'll upload the file one more time. And I'll say, there we go. Now what? So now I think what I just did, I created 3 Docker images on the Kubernetes side for ChatGPT. That's pretty good for $20 a month. And I do this stuff a lot every day, including weekends. So it looks like I've uploaded a zip file. What would you like me to do? Do you need me to extract the contents and analyze? And I'll just say, yes, please. And notice I don't even spell out please, right? I'm a horrible speller. And Alexander can attest to that. And I'm horrible with grammar. So I kind of keep my stuff so I can either code or I can spell and put sentences together. So it goes forward and it figures out the libraries that import, extracts the stuff, and oh, I have movies in there. Looks like you have that. What would you like me to do? Let's do a preview. Now I'm just typing in single words because I think it's really cool what this thing can do with simple. This is less than minimal effort prompts. You can put entire paragraphs in here. Take a look at this, compare that, do this, use this analysis, use PyTorch, use blah, blah, blah. Now this is code interpreter looking at the data for the first time. There's no descriptions inside of this CSV file that tells it, what this is, right? Does it need to be cleaned? Right. So it gives me the headings, gives me some information about it. Now, once this becomes a REST API, I wouldn't be typing any of this. Now, I might have an entire ETL process or an enrichment process in my company. Why not just take that data, throw it at this, give it a bunch of prompts, and out comes good stuff on the other end? Who knows? Looks like the data set may need some cleaning. Here are a few observations. So it gives me observations about white space, missing values, so on and so forth. I can say fix. So missing values are always a problem in data. So I can say fix the missing values. Let's see if it can. So there's missing values across 3 columns initially. Now, I could be inspecting the data myself and then locally or whatever. I can have it open in Excel or I can have it in a CSV file. Would you like me to proceed with these suggestions? Yes, I would. So it's a really nice, polite intern. And then it tells me what it's going to do. I don't usually get this when I'm working with somebody. I'll say, hey, can we do this? And they'll go, sure. And they go off and do something. They come back and it's not what I'd like. I can sit here and go, oh, you're going to tell me what you're going to do. And then I can say, no, thank you, or do something else, or add in a couple of steps. And there we go. So let's drop this. And it uses DF, which I know is a data frame. So I know it's using pandas. And there we go with the standard fill NA. So it knows how to use pandas, knows how to use the appropriate method calls on the particular columns that I want. And it gives me at the end, it shows me some of the data. Now, I could at this point, I could say, okay, great, export to SLXX. Now what that does, so what's interesting is now going to keep the context and memory of what we've done. It's not going to take the original piece. It's going to take the cleaned up data ready to go, and it's going to create the Excel file and give me a link to it. I'm not going to open it. And then now I have an opportunity to take this and work with it. If we want to look at the code, let's see which, so Pandas has a to_excel method on it. And now I did it inside of, here, and I can download it, and then I can use it in PowerShell, for example, and I can use my Excel module, and I can go to town on this and have fun, build charts. I find that this doesn't really do things like pivot tables and charts and whatnot, but I'm sure that's on its way. And once you get more control, once we have more control from an API perspective, there are people I know that are experimenting with uploading different types of packages and telling it to use this package, and install it, and off to the races. So this is the beta version. Anything else that you'd like me to look at with this particular example? So we took an archive zip file, just threw it up. I said, now what? I said, hey, you want to extract it? I said, sure. Tells me what's in it. Do a preview on it. Tells me what's in the data. So that's a typical data science piece, right? I'm going to unzip it, take a look at the CSV file, use pandas, and just to read it, the CSV file straight away, print out the headings, print out the first and last 5 rows. So I can start getting information. There's things like pandas.describe, which then says it tries to figure out all the data types of the data in there, tell me the missing data, the missing ranges, things like that. And this went ahead and did that straight away and cleaned the data for me. Now I'm not going to take this data set and just check it into GitHub and then deploy it to production. I'm going to take a look at it. And once I start looking at the XLSX or whatever file format I'm comfortable with, I can then re-upload that and have ChatGPT and the code interpreter work on it. So it's a really smart intern, works 168 hours a week, doesn't get tired, ready to go. I'm gonna try one more thing because it just popped into my head. I have no idea what this will do. Export to, maybe Mike, you can keep me honest on this one. Cat, is that the name of it, right? That's one of the formats. I don't know if it has, sure. Cat. Now I'm laughing at it. This is when I start to crack up, like, what are you kidding me? Yep, so Pandas has a 2-parquet. So that's a special format that folks use in the Python world. So now I have, and I can use fast parquet on this whole thing. So I just have a nice new, highly an optimized version, and I'm good to go. Would you like to proceed with downloading the clean data set in another format? I can download the Parquet format, good to go. Can you ask it to export all Python? Oh, great point, Alexander. Okay. Let's see, yes, export the full Python. I'm gonna leave the misspelling Python code. So now I'm done. So now I've got a data set. I've got it already ready to go in XLSX. I could ask it for a CSV. It's not going to export it. Okay. It's not going to, I can download the CSV Excel of the clean, ready to go data. I can even ask it for CSV, Parquet, and Excel and say, put it all in a zip file, and it would. That's awesome. And now here's the full program from A to Z. I think that includes the cleaning. Yep, includes the cleaning, extracting the data, getting the information, cleaning up the missing values that I asked it, or said, hey, yeah, clean that up for me, be great. And it creates the Parquet. And then it says to me, hey, if you don't have these different packages, here's how you install them. It didn't give me the actual zip file. I could ask it for a file, and I could just copy the code if I wanted to here. Now, imagine, again, this is all a REST API. Somebody checks this in and you have a GitHub action that actually interacts with the REST API. You can give it the data set and off it goes, does all the stuff, and you can check back in the CSV file, the XLSX file, and the Parquet file all into your GitHub repo and have other folks in the company use it or download it. And then you can actually say, well, and here's the source code to actually make it work. That is not a simple task. And we did that in 45 minutes. And we did 3 examples. This one took a little longer, which is awesome for me. I love playing with this. I'm going to spend the rest of the day experimenting with this, the PowerShell AI module, So thanks everybody for hanging out. And then I've got one more question. If anybody else has questions or something, to either try this or other things, we can get ChatGPT to pronounce words for me. It'd be awesome. I'm thinking about taking my partial AI function stuff, and I'm going to probably do like a half hour of how this works and how function calling works. It's really slick what they've done. And again, it's only just begun. So like Mike mentioned, like on July 29th, he was working with it and got some unusual things. And now here it is August 3rd, and we get some different stuff. So I'm going to probably set up on a meetup. So if you keep an eye on that, I'll publish when I'm going to do this. We'll take a walk through the OpenAI function specs and how all that works and how I've integrated into OpenAI into my PowerShell module. And again, folks have done that with Python, and they've done it with C# and so on and so forth. So the conceptualization is more important than the actual mechanics. Let's see, you can also do that on the free version by finishing a detailed prompt with generate a Python 3 script. Absolutely. Yep. Good point, Mike. So yeah, so some of the stuff I'm showing here is workable in GPT-4 and 3.5 on the free versions. And I don't think I've done that. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for joining. Really appreciate it. Follow me on Twitter if you do, on X, formerly known as Twitter, and be great. Custom instructions are now available to everyone. Yep. A lot of people are real excited about that. So, about custom instructions, it's kind of like setting up system messages so that every time you come in here, you can tell it, you can set up you can ground the model to do certain things. And I always want this to be in JSON, or I want you to think about it like A, B, C, and D. I think it's interesting. I don't find much use for it because every time I use it, I'm in a different persona and trying to do other things. But some people are finding it really, really useful, and they actually copy and paste. They have different custom instructions for what they're doing. They'll copy, paste, drop them in, and they're off to the races. So this is great, and I think I'm waiting for the next iteration where I'm going to look at these as profiles, and then I can choose the profile I want depending on what I want to do. But yeah, if you get comfortable with how the REST APIs work, you have system, user, and assistant messages you can pass back and forth. And these are just UIs on top of that to make it easier for people who don't want to get into the programmatic details. This stuff is coming along. It's quite amazing. And again, it's the competition to this, like Anthropic and whatnot, is really driving some really cool innovation. I think Alexander says, I think people will share them like PS profiles. Absolutely. Absolutely. I've been looking at building these custom instructions, and I didn't call them that, but into PowerShell AI, where I can actually set up the system messages initially, and finding an interesting way, an easy way to pick and choose what you want. So that's all coming, and I'm waiting to see some of the other folks who spend even more time than I do on this thing and how they architect and layer it and some of the innovations that they do. So yeah, again, spend the $20, get involved. You want to keep an eye on how all this stuff is working. Spend an hour a week trying this stuff out, because once you leave what I'm talking about, by tomorrow or a day later or whatnot, you're going to forget. And then plus what you see coming through all the social medias and all the different magazine articles, there's just so much information. And how do you do this? How do you do that? Oh, there's another 1,000 products out there. You can get lost in the sea. But at the core, this is going to change our industry and many other industries. So that's all the questions for now. I really appreciate you joining. Hope it was useful, and hope to catch you next time. Take care. You're welcome. Thanks for joining.